What's going on, guys? Nathan here, and today I'm going to teach you the simple straight draw strategy that has skyrocketed my winnings lately, and I think it will for you too. Alright guys, so this is a fairly simple straight draw strategy, and don't worry, I'm going to walk you step by step through an example hand in today's video. Alright, so what is this straight draw strategy? Basically, this involves a turn semi-bluff raise. Now let me unpack that for you. So the turn, as some of you experienced poker players already know, is the fourth card of the community cards in the middle, and we're going to be raising with a straight draw as a bluff, and that's why it's called a semi-bluff as well, by the way, because we do have outs. Even if we get called, we can still possibly catch our lucky card on the river. It's important to always have outs when you're bluffing in poker. Now, the other really important thing before we jump into the example hand here is to understand that we're going to be doing this versus a very specific player type, and luckily that's going to be the most common opponent that you face in today's games. If you are playing low stakes games like 90% of people do, then you have no doubt faced the weak regulars, and now let me unpack that for you. A regular is one of these players that you see every single day at the table. They take the game seriously just like you do. They're watching videos like this, they're studying, they're trying to improve their game. They are not the fish, they are not the recreational players. These are decent players. However, they are weak, they are risk averse, they don't like to put a lot of money in the middle without a very strong hand. We see these players everywhere in today's games, and that is why this strategy is specifically tailored to exploit the major weakness of these players, which is being afraid essentially to commit a lot of their chips without a very strong hand. It makes these players very bluffable. Now, the final point here is, guys, please do not use this strategy versus the fish, the recreational players. As I've mentioned in many videos on this channel, you do not want to be bluffing these types of players. You do not win in poker by trying to bluff a player who doesn't like to fold. That is a disaster. That's a great way to light money on fire. All right, let's jump into the hand here. So you've got 9-8 of hearts, a nice little suited connector on the button, and we're up against one of these weak regulars. So the weak regular raises. We're going to assume from EP or MP. I'm going to put the image on your screen right now of the positions at the poker table, just for some of you guys who might be newer to the game. We're going to be calling on the button here, and we're doing that specifically because this is one of the most profitable seats in the game, and the reason why is because we're going to get to act last on the flop, turn, and river. Massive proven statistical advantage, because it's going to allow us to outplay this player, which is exactly what I'm going to show you how to do right now. So the flop comes down with the 7 of hearts, king of spades, and 6 of clubs, and we're going to assume that the regular, remember they're going to be acting first, is going to make their standard continuation bet here on the flop. So what should you do? All right, guys, well, this is all about making the call in position. I've already made other videos, by the way, before on the channel here, talking about how to raise on the flop with your draws. I definitely will be raising in this situation sometimes as well, but I do think you should be flat calling at least 50% of the time here. Let's break down the flop, by the way, just for some of you guys who are newer to the game. This is a really good flop for our hand. We have both an open-ended straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. Now let me unpack both of those. An open-ended straight draw is when you have 8 outs, and an out in poker, by the way, is a card that's going to give us the best hand. So in this example, on the 7 king 6 board, and we have 9-8, if we catch any 5 or any 10, we are going to make the nut straight. Remember, there are 4 5s remaining in the deck, and there are also 4 10s remaining in the deck, 8 outs. But hopefully some of you savvy poker players also notice that there's a heart on this flop, meaning that if it came with a heart on the turn and river, we would also make a flush, which is a nearly unbeatable hand in No Limit Texas Hold'em. So this is a pretty good flop for our hands. So like I said, while we will be raising in this spot from time to time, we're going to just choose to call in this situation because we're going to be executing the bluff on the turn in this hand instead. Now I want to be clear as we go through this hand that our intention 100% is to take away this pot on the turn and river. We're going to do just that. The biggest mistake that I see with a lot of my students and with a lot of beginner poker players is they just kind of call here without any kind of game plan. They don't realize that we can't just be committing chips to the pot, just calling folding and just hoping we hit our draw later on. Guys, that's not a profitable strategy in poker. We need to have a clear game plan for how we're going to take this pot away from this player, and that's why we've chosen, by the way, this specific player type, a player who backs down a lot. By the way, I forgot to mention earlier, if you're using a HUD, which stands for heads up display, this is something I use in online poker, many other professional poker players use when they play online poker, you can just look for players with a low went to showdown percentage. I usually look for players with 25 or less on that stat, and once again, these are the statistics you can put on your screen in online poker. If you're curious about the HUD that I use as a professional, I will link that up in the description below. And I should mention, for those of you guys who play live poker or you play online poker on a site that does not allow HUDs, or you just don't want to use a HUD, you just want to be looking for players who back down a lot. They don't like, once again, to commit a lot of their chips without a very strong hand. So with all that said, let's go see the turn. So the turn is all about applying the maximum pressure. So the turn comes down with the Jack of Diamonds. So the full board reads now 7, King, 6, Jack, Rainbow, meaning 4 different suits, no possible flush draw. So we're going to assume that the regular bets again here. Very strong play in Texas Hold'em. So what should you do? Well, guys, this is all about executing the semi-bluff and putting the maximum pressure on one of these risk-averse player types that you see everywhere in today's games. You should raise here, and I want to be clear, sometimes, not all of the time. There are going to be many situations where I am just double floating here in position with the intention to take away the pot later on the river. I have also made videos here on the channel discussing that strategy, and I also have an entire video on my brand new Elite Poker Training University. I think it's nearly a 45-minute video in the middle of the course, and I think there's about 5 different examples talking about the double float. This is in addition to 17 plus hours of advanced poker training, hundreds and hundreds of example hands, downloadable cheat sheets, and more. Enrollment is open right now. I'll put a link for that in the description below as well. But guys, it's important to understand that this is not a good card for our hand. Obviously, this doesn't complete any of the draws that we have. This is not a 5, it's not a 10, and it's not a heart. We already talked about those are the cards we want to see. However, once again, guys, let's break down this player's range. Remember, this is a risk-averse player type, and we expect them to have a tight range. They're not going to be in here with total nonsense. This is not the kind of player who plays, you know, a hand like 7-4 or a hand like 5-3 or something. And remember, this player also raised from early position, middle position, also indicating a strong range. So we expect this player to have plenty of strong hands like an ace-king, a king-queen, or a pocket queens in this situation. And what do we know about risk-averse weak regulars like this? They're looking for a reason to fold. You can often get these players to lay a hand down even that strong in a situation like this when you pull the trigger on the turn here and make the raise. And also, it's important, guys, to understand that this player will have plenty of bluffs in their range as well. These players absolutely will be continuing with a hand like ace-queen, for example, on this turn because they picked up the gut shot to the Broadway straight. If it came with a 10 on the river, they would make the nut straight. I've talked about double barreling in many videos, by the way, on the channel here as well. You can go check out those videos. By the way, make sure you subscribe so you never miss my new poker strategy videos here on YouTube. But we expect to be able to fold out those hands very easily. A hand like ace-10 as well is another bluffing hand we expect to have in here. Jack-queen definitely would be another bluffing hand that we could probably get to fold right now. Guys, remember, we are targeting a very specific player type here, the players who like to back down unless they have a very strong hand. Now let's talk about when they do have a very strong hand, because this is something that always needs to be mentioned when you're making a bluff, and that is that you will get called sometimes. Guys, it doesn't matter what you do. You cannot make a bluff get through 100% of the time in poker. Sometimes you are simply going to run into the top of their range. For example, they're literally going to have 2 red kings on this turn of 7, king, 6, jack, and you're going to be semi-bluffing into the nuts, and you're going to have egg all over your face. But the beautiful thing is, guys, I just said semi-bluff. Remember, we talked about that off the top, that we don't want to be bluffing without outs in poker, and a lot of times they'll just call with their pocket kings there, and we can still spike that 5 or that 10 on the river. And I think you guys already know what's going to happen if one of those cards falls on the river. We're going to get their whole stack, and they might not be too happy with us either. It might put them on tilt, which is never a bad thing either. But the bottom line, guys, is you don't win pots in poker by playing passively and just hoping to hit your card. That's why we're raising here on the turn. We're giving ourselves more ways to win this pot. Once again, we're targeting a very specific player type, the type of player who likes to find reasons to fold. We're not doing this against the fish. We're not doing this against the recreational players. We're not doing this against the maniacs, the loose aggressives, all of those player types who are going to call you down with their jack queen, with their ace queen, with their ace 10, with their pocket queens, with their pocket 10s, and so on. We're not going to try to bluff those players because we know they're not folding, or if they've got a 7 or a 6, etc. So guys, if you take anything from this video, it is to understand that you need to play your draws in a more aggressive manner. Like I said, there's many different ways to go about this, and I've made videos now with every single way on this channel. This includes raising the flop, raising the turn like we discussed today, and even raising the river. I made a video about that a couple weeks ago as well, executing the double float and raising on the river. So guys, incorporate some of these more sophisticated ways to play your draws into your game by applying pressure against the right kinds of players on the right kinds of turn and river cards, and I think you're going to have a lot more success. Guys, like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and also if you want to know my entire strategy to smash the small and mid stakes games, make sure you grab a copy of my free poker cheat sheet. That will be the top link in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I appreciate you. I hope this one helped. I will catch you next time.